艦が初の戦果を上げました。敵巡洋艦を撃沈。
إنجليزي مثلا.
Would it be an English thing then, for instance?
إذا كان غير عربي.
As you take an extra.
An extra. Not necessary, sir.
Mr. President, the invasion of a neighboring country with such calculated force and brutality is a very un-Arab thing to do, isn't it?
هل هو إنجليزي مثلا؟
Would it be an English thing then, for instance?
إذا كان غير عربي.
If it's not an Arab thing to do, would it be a British way?
I don't think it would be a British way, Mr. President, but I'm asking whether it's not an Arab thing to do.
لنتفق على أنه كل عمل عدواني هو ليس من شيمنا.
Let's agree that any aggressive act or any act of aggression is not any of our traits. It's not characteristic of us.
ولكن الرد على العدوان جزء من سجايانا.
But it is characteristic of us to repel aggression, to react to aggression.
فالذي حصل أنه العائلة الحاكمة الكويتية قد تآمرت علينا.
What happened was that the ruling family in Kuwait conspired against us.
وحكام الكويت السابقين
But the rulers, the former rulers of Kuwait, knew what to do. They, as the method to be harmful, as merchants themselves, they knew that they're good at blackmail, they're good at exploitation, and they're good at destroying their opponents, the party they want to harm.
But, Mr. President, the fact is that before August the 2nd, Kuwait was an independent country and a member of the United Nations.
تماما نحن لا ننكر هذا الجانب.
That's right. We do not deny this part.
القانون العام.
With regard to the general.
ولكن إلى جانب هذه الحقائق أيضا هنالك حقائق أخرى.
Besides these facts, or in addition to these facts, there are other facts.
أيضا تشكل
which also
خلفية قانونية وتاريخية مقابلة.
Which also constitute legal and historical background which may stand.
أيضا نحن لو نسأل.
If we ask national public opinion in general, was it legal for 13? Was it in accordance with the law?
من المؤكد سيكون الجواب لا.
I'm certain that the answer to this would be no. The severing of Kuwait was not done in any legal way, but it was done according with the law that says might is right.
ثم لو تركنا الأمور جانبا لكي لا ننساق إلى الخلفيات وفق الاتجاهات التي جرى الحديث عنها.
And if we leave things aside so that we may not be dragged into talking about the backgrounds in the manner that we referred to.
وركزنا على الأحداث القريبة من 2 آب.
And concentrated rather on the events or developments closer to the 2nd of August, immediately before the 2nd of August.
هنالك 3 إشارات تحذير.
There were 3 signals to the rulers of Kuwait telling them that they were playing a very dangerous game when they were perpetrating a very grave and dangerous US conspiracy here.
التحذير الأول حصل
The first warning
في
Greg, we need to talk. No time got sales calls to summarize.
You really need to switch to Monday CRM. It has built-in AI that summarizes calls for you.
في الشهر الخامس
was given in May of this year.
في بغداد عندما انعقد المؤتمر القمة العربي
here in Baghdad when we had the Arab Summit Conference
وحضره جابر الصباح
attended by Jabir al-Khawf.
وجرى التحذير أمام كل الرؤساء والملوك العرب.
And the warning was expressed in front of all Arab heads of states, kings, to him that what you were doing to us was an act of war. And if you do not mean to wage war against us, then you've got to retract from doing what you're doing. Otherwise, if you persist, we are going to consider it as war being waged against us.
وهذا التحذير مسجل صورة وصوت وبحضور كل الملوك والرؤساء.
And this is a warning that was issued in front of cameras, and it has been recorded both in picture and in sound, and it was given in front of all the heads of state.
التحذير الثاني
The second warning
والثالث
and the third warning
حصل بخطاب لصدام حسين في نصف الشهر السابع.
Was given in a speech addressed by Saddam Hussein in midst of July.
ومذكرة قدمت للجامعة العربية أيضا في منتصف الشهر السابع.
And as well as in a memorandum presented to the League of Arab States also in mid-July.
فالذي يهجم عليك.
So whoever wages an attack against you, and you have warned him or them against persisting in waging such an attack, then you are left with no other alternative but to seek other means of perpetrating or containing such an attack. And we said in our July warning to them that if you do not stop this conspiracy of stopping it, and this is what had to be done in order to rectify things.
على أي حال هذه الأمور حتى نصل بها إلى فهم إنساني مشترك.
At any rate, these matters, in order to bring them or to come to some mutually acceptable humane understanding or human understanding about them,
فلا بد أن نأخذ قياس واحد.
We must choose or take or adopt a single criteria. Single standard.
إذا ما قسنا الأمور بقياسات مختلفة.
Because if we adopt double standards or criteria that are not uniform, different standards, these matters,
سيقع المرء بالخطأ.
We are going to fall into error.
مثلا.
For instance.
عندما نقول هل يجوز أن تهجم دولة على دولة أخرى؟ الجواب لا.
When you ask, is it acceptable for a state to attack another state? Obviously, the answer is no.
ولكن
But if each issue is to be addressed in accordance with its own background, then the 2nd of August issue must also be taken against its own background.
أنتم تعرفون مثلا
You know, for instance,
من بين أكثر الدول التي هجمت على دول أخرى هي أمريكا وإنجلترا.
That amongst the countries that have historically perpetrated more aggressions against other states are the United States and Britain.
ولكن لو سألنا المسؤولين في
But if we were to ask the officials in the United States or in Britain about why those aggressions were perpetrated, their reply would say, well, those things happened out of circumstance.
صحيح.
So if such a reply would be the right one or acceptable,
فلا بد أن تقاس به الأمور الأخرى أي بمعنى.
So if such a reply would sound acceptable or the right one, then the 2nd of August issue must also be addressed in this way, because it has to be addressed according to its own background, which would mean that we would reach correct.
Do nothing.
لم يخطر على بالنا ابتداء أن نسأل أن يكون هذا هو السؤال الأول.
It didn't occur to us to begin with that this would be the first question that should be asked.
وإنما كان السؤال الأول
I first came across Ansarada in 2014. It was a corporate finance deal we were working on for a solar developer in the UK. A colleague asked the lawyer we were dealing with, do you have data room provider you prefer working with? She answered Ansarada.
وإنما كان السؤال الأول
But the first question in our minds
هل
was,
نحن على حق أم على باطل في هذا أو ذاك من التصرفات التي نقوم بها.
but the first question in our minds was whether we were right or wrong in this particular act or that particular act which we choose to take.
كان هذا هو السؤال الأول.
This was our first preoccupying question.
وقد أجبنا على هذا السؤال بيقين راسخ
And
بأننا على حق في تصرفنا وفي منهجنا.
And we reached a conclusion with regard to this question, a very firm conclusion, which was that we were correct and right in our approach, in our action.
But now, Mr. President, as a result of that action, you have the world uniquely ranged against you. Even your friends, the Soviets and the French, they say you must get out of Kuwait.
نحن نحترم رأي الذي له رأي.
We respect the view of anybody who may have a view on the subject of Kuwait, because the issue of Kuwait is a complicated one, and we do not presuppose that
الكويت لو أخذ بصورته المجرد
because the issue of were to be in isolation and it would look as if it were meaning
نعم هنالك عدد من الدول
yes there is a number of countries,
وخاصة الدول الكبيرة والصناعية منها بوجه خاص
the great powers, the big powers, and especially also more particularly the industrialized countries, the sort of general say that the world is unified or united against Iraq is indeed not a correct thing.
ليس هذا انطباعنا نحن فقط.
This is not just our impression.
وإنما هذه هي التصريحات التي
in the statements that and the press of the United States and Britain, statements issued by parties in the United States and Britain, they themselves are sort of voicing out their concern that the unity, so-called unity against Iraq is perhaps being suffering from a sort of split because, in accordance with the sort of general legal terms on which they based their unity with regard to the Iraq action, and in accordance with which they also talked about how measures should be taken in order to respond to this action.
لماذا حصل أنه
why have we noticed or found that this sort of so-called unity against Iraq has witnessed some steps being taken as if to retract from it? The fact is that the United States and Britain pushed or guided the Security Council into adopting hastily taken resolutions against Iraq. And once states of the world or countries began to realize or to see or gauge things in accordance with the historical background of this issue, in accordance with the history of the relationship here, we began to witness changes into their attitudes in accordance with this background, and we began to witness some differences in the attitudes in accordance with the interests of the countries and also with what is practical as seen by them.
But there are no splits in the Security Council resolutions. There are no splits at all. There are no changes. All the countries say Iraq must withdraw from Kuwait.
أنا لم أقل أن هنالك انشقاق. في الغرب يقولون أن هنالك انشقاق.
I didn't say that there is a split in their position. This is being said in the West.
أن الذي يهمنا نحن
What is important to us, as well as Muslims,
هو أن نتخذ القرارات.
what is important to us is that dialogue, is for dialogue to be conducted with us.
In 2003, the US and a handful of allies invaded Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein on the premise that he had
Weapons mass destruction.
Well, that turned out not to be true, and the war kicked off a cycle of violence and political instability that Iraq is still caught up in.
I think the legacy is a destruction of a coherent state and the inability to rebuild.
So much has happened in the last 20 years, but we're going to focus on where Iraq stands today and how it got there. Here are 5 takeaways to help you understand it all. The first thing you need to know is that life in Iraq before the US invasion in 20 years, Saddam Hussein was brutal. There was no political freedom, and Saddam's regime committed horrific human rights abuses, killings, torture, disappearances, even a chemical weapons attack that killed thousands of Iraqi Kurds. Iraq was isolated, seen as a rogue state, and it was under strict international sanctions that had a punishing effect on the Iraqi people.
There was absolutely no room to barely even breathe. The regime dictates every aspect of your life, from the moment you're born to the moment of death.
But within weeks of the US invasion in 2003, Saddam Hussein's regime had fallen, and President George W. Bush announced, "Mission accomplished."
The United States and our allies have prevailed.
And despite the huge controversy around the invasion, there was a moment when some Iraqis thought things might actually improve.
Iraqis initially were excited about this idea, like, is democracy going to work? We don't like living under Saddam. Many Iraqis were actually cautiously looking at the invasion as a potential to end their, years of suffering under the Saddam Hussein regime and the sanctions and all that.
So then the question became, what happens next? And it soon became clear that there had been some seriously bad planning on that front. So that's our next takeaway, because it set Iraq on a really troubling and chaotic path.
Americans said, we are coming for you to give you a freedom. Where is the freedom? Bombing every day in the night. There is no administration. There is no system. There is no organization.
Certainly, U.S. leaders could have been more informed about the complexity of the situation that they were walking into.
The U.S. installed a temporary government, the CPA, and the first thing it did was a big clear out of people from Iraq's state institutions. It was called de-Baathification, and it targeted anyone who'd been linked to Saddam's party, the Ba'ath Party. But that was basically everyone who'd been running the country, because you had to be a party member for most state jobs. All the normal functions of government just stopped, and hundreds of thousands of people were suddenly out of a job. And then came the CPA's second move, disbanding the Iraqi military. And a lot of people reckon this was one of the biggest mistakes.
So a bunch of men with guns were now unemployed and angry. Different armed groups pop up. Many of them would become the networks that would become Al-Qaeda in Iraq and then ISIS.
The plan was basically dismantle everything, every aspect of the previous regime, all the institutions, and that led to a collapse in security that Iraq has barely recovered from.
Now, another example of the bad planning was how the new political system was designed and introduced. It was created by a bunch of outsiders, mostly American officials and exiled Iraqis, basically opponents of Saddam Hussein. Many months before,
fundamental to a country and determined that this would be the political system without really doing enough or wanted to be represented.
Now, in Iraq, the three main demographic groups are the Shia majority and the Sunni and Kurdish minorities. On the idea that she runs the country is always Shia, the president is Kurdish, and the Speaker of Parliament is Sunni. And that model served the interests of all those Iraqi exiles who designed it and planned to come back and take charge.
So how do you, returning to a country after decades of exile, build constituents? You don't know these people. You don't know any, the way you do it is by building these kind of imagined communities based on ethnicity or sect. All of a sudden, you have these parties come, and they're creating sectarianism.
Huge issue, and that's our third takeaway.
They call it power sharing, but to a huge extent, as one Iraqi politician herself, the cake.
Most Iraqis basically see this political system as a elite pact of these parties that came to share the spoils of the state, to gut the system of its wealth.
The greatest threat to Iraq's advancement is internal corruption. The siphoning of state resources away from the benefit of the people into personal and private accounts for personal and private aims.
Keep in mind, there's actually a lot of money sloshing around in Iraq. It's got huge oil reserves, which bring in billions of dollars every year and basically fund the government. But it's mostly the politicians who benefit.
Their fortunes have increased by billions while the country continues to decline on, the quality of life, on income, on levels of employment.
So the Ministry of Health has this board to make sure that medicine in Iraq is fit for purpose. Its budget is $1 billion a year. When we studied it, we found that over 70% of medicine is either fake or expired. So people are taking bad medicine, even though there is literally a company with $1 billion to insure medicine, right? Where does that money go? It goes to the political elite under the system of corruption.
Okay, the next takeaway, if you want to understand Iraq today, is how Iran fits in, because it's a big player. They're neighbors, and they share a long border. In 1980, Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, and the two countries fought an 8-year war.
I think from an Iranian perspective, they fear a strong Iraq, thinking largely back to the time of the Iran-Iraq War, and would seek, on one way or another, to co-opt Iraq such that it can never threaten Iran.
Remember, Iran is run by Shia religious leaders. It's got its own regional ambitions and a major rivalry with the US, which also plays out in Iraq. In the chaos that followed the US invasion, Iran started doing things like getting behind certain political parties and funding militias. And over time, it's become a major power broker.
Iran also does not function as simply a neighbor. It functions kind of as a protector and as an owner, basically.
Many of the opposition parties spent time in Iran when they were opposing the Saddam Hussein regime. So it leveraged these relations to really gain access to developing the political system in Iraq to its liking. It's that balancing of how to sort of keep Iraq strong enough to function, but also weak enough never to present a threat to its interests.
Okay, so from the flawed political system to corruption to the influence of Iran, what you've got in Iraq today is a kind of political stalemate where nothing really gets done. Add to that the issue of security, or more accurately, the lack of security. At the height of the chaos in 2008, around 10,000 civilians were killed. Iraqis have had to deal with all kinds of threats from foreign troops to groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIL, plus all the different militias that have cropped up. Now, sometimes these militias have been helpful, for example, in the fight against Al-Qaeda and ISIL. But today it's got to the point where militias have a kind of stranglehold over Iraq and its politics, because many militias are actually aligned with political parties.
So there's no real ruling system in Iraq. It's a network of corruption. It's a network of parties and political figures and militia groups basically battling each other for money and influence.
And of course, none of this serves the needs of the people of Iraq, which brings us to our last big takeaway. Iraqis are desperate for change. In 2019, their frustrations spilled over into huge protests in the south. The protests went on for months, and the government responded with a violent crackdown, and almost 600 people were killed.
They did bring down a prime minister, but they never really touched the system. And instead, the system has recalibrated.
Now, many in this protest movement have pinned their hopes on a guy named Muqtada al-Sadr. He's someone you should know about because he's a very powerful figure. He's a Shia religious leader who's been around for years. He led a brutal militia that carried out some of the worst sectarian violence that happened after curb sectarianism and the motivation, or even see him as an obstacle to reform. Al-Sadr's bloc actually won the most seats in the 2021 election, but he didn't manage to form a government. It led to a political crisis that essentially pitted al-Sadr against a rival Shia bloc that's more pro-Iran. Al-Sadr's supporters even stormed parliament. In the end, that other bloc came out on top, and they chose the current prime minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. What all of this shows is just how deeply shattered by the US invasion and
we tend to blame America for everything. And yes, the United States does and should share the larger portion of the burden here for invading in the first place and then not planning for the aftermath. But also, Iraqis do share some of this burden. And by Iraqis, I do mean the officials and the leadership.
This is the story of the war that does not speak its name. A war that started over 40 years ago. The war between Iran on the one side and the United States and Israel on the other is both ideological and strategic, a conflict that stirs up passions, resentment, and hatred. To understand this potential return of barbaric violence, we must go back in time to unravel the tangled threads of tragedy, seek the elusive truths behind the dogmas and the certainties, and tell this story. The history of the war began on February 1st, 1979, aboard a flight from Paris to Tehran. An old man is praying. This is Ayatollah Khomeini. He is preparing to radically change the history of Iran.
It isn't easy to talk about the greatness of this figure. One of his enemies once remarked that there had been no one like him for 800 years, and there would be no one else like him for another 1,000 years.
Khomeini historically embodied the people's opposition to the Shah, the all-powerful monarch who had reigned over Iran for nearly 40 years. In exile for 15 years, the Ayatollah was finally returning home for the final battle alongside his people, a revolution in the name of Shiite Islam. A new era was about to begin in the Middle East. A year before Khomeini's return, an uprising began in Tehran. In early 1978, hundreds of thousands of Iranians took to the streets to challenge their ruler. Demonstrators had had enough of a ruler who, bent on making Iran a great power, sought to impose Western-style modernity on them, either willingly or by force. They viewed it as an unfair and corrupt system that failed to meet the most basic needs of the population. Two countries had come to embody the imperialism condemned by the demonstrators. Two countries that supported the Shah's regime, the United States and Israel. Today, it is difficult to imagine those two countries were the Iranian state's closest allies.
For us, Iran was arguably our most important partner after the United States in terms of economic interests. We undertook some grand projects with them.
Back in the 1950s, Israel had made that refused to acknowledge its existence, the Hebrew state was looking for non-Arab partners a little further afield in the Middle East. Iran, Persian, pro-Western, built on a different kind of Islam to the other Arab countries, stood out as a natural ally.
It's hard to imagine now, but it was a very close-knit collaboration.
That has the most advanced technology.
Washington, too, had chosen to make Iran the cornerstone of its influence in the region.
Comes in so fast.
The high degree of military cooperation was designed to keep Tehran in the Western camp.
Also, this was the time of the Cold War, of course, and Iran was a major arena of US-Soviet competition. So yes, the Shah was close to America because he felt that it needed the American support in confronting the USSR and maintaining his government in power.
For both Tel Aviv and Washington, Iran under the Shah was an invaluable partner, the key piece in the great Middle Eastern game. But neither Israel nor America realized the extent and strength of an opposition that was destined to prevail.
When I spoke with the generals, they would tell me, look, it's like measles. We're seeing demonstrations at the moment. That's the way it is. The Shah has asked us to sort it out because he's the military chief. Well, we're sorting it out.
The blindness and incomprehension of a regime faced with such a powerful and determined uprising was heading for tragedy. That day, Black Friday, the Shah's army opened fire in the streets of Tehran. The official death toll was 87, but according to opposition estimates, it was closer to 4,000. The monarchy had just revealed its true face. The revolutionary process was underway, and now there was no stopping it. Regarded as supporters of the Shah, Israeli and American expatriates became targets and began to leave the country. Protesters attacked cafes, restaurants, banks, and cinemas, Western symbols of modernity associated with the stronghold Israel and the United States had on their country.
Of confrontation that countries have been trying to avoid since the last World War.
This was a difficult decision. I know there's a lot of peril in doing this, but I think it was the right thing to do.
Yet again, we see a war of choice, no clear strategy, no understanding of the cultural implication, no real effort to protect the people. What is left at the end of this could be 10 times worse as a consequence.
Hello and welcome to the forecast. I'm Christian Gurumurthy in Tel Aviv, where we have started to see Iranian cluster missiles being intercepted by air defenses here. But a week into this war, the Middle East is on fire. Qatar is warning today of global economic disaster, and the White House is pumping out propaganda videos of Hollywood memes to try and get its base enthused about the war in the face of some skeptics. political opinion polls. Joining me today, General Sir Richard Sheriff, described Trump and Hegseth is an expert as their international chief of staff in the National Security Council.
That aim has been made clear from above as 50 Israeli jets dropped multiple bombs into Tehran on top of the underground compound of the now dead Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. The Israeli Air Force also bombarded the Lebanese capital Beirut, rocked by explosions, reducing buildings to rubble. Though the Middle East may be thousands of miles away, we are being warned that it will affect our bills here. We'll explain how. We'll also talk you through today's developments, both in the Middle East and the US, also tonight.
No sentence can bring back their laughter, their hugs, their voices, their love. No sentence can bring back 4 hearts that should still be beating.
She fled her abusive ex-boyfriend. In revenge, he killed her sister and her children in a house fire. He's now jailed for life.
The night Harry Styles fans have been waiting for. Their pop idol is back to record an exclusive one night in Manchester.
And from her local village green to the show ring at Crufts, Freya's return to the centre stage after battling cancer.
Is the most loyal friend I've ever had. She's my best friend, and there's nothing that could replace Eka.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the incredible Dillon Coastal Resort, an exclusive collection of coastal lodges that combine
This is the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. President Trump tonight demanded Iran's unconditional surrender as his defense secretary warned the US and Israeli bombing campaign will surge dramatically. Tehran and other Iranian sites were subjected to more airstrikes overnight and today. Israel's military has also targeted the Lebanese capital of Beirut, with more than 200 people reported to have died since Monday. And there's growing fears about the global impact of the war. Oil prices are still surging, with Qatar warning that disruption to oil production could bring down some economies. We'll have more on that.
Wants unconditional surrender from the Iranians. He is seeking to bomb his way to it. The barrage in Tehran last night was said to be the worst bombardment so far. The death toll is now over 1,000. Bodies hauled from beneath homes. Their war at an end. For others, it goes on. Merciless. Relentless. Among the targets and potentially victims of the latest wave, senior politicians targeted in an underground bunker. Surrender or die, the message delivered from 50 fighter jets. President Trump says he is neutering those who govern this country. We will see in the coming hours who lived and who died. Yet Iran still has the power to do its own harm. Repeatedly striking Kurdish bases over the border with Iraq amid preparations for an American-backed ground operation. With warnings of a lethal, decisive
Everyone is fighting for their own benefit. The United States and Israel are fighting for their benefit, and we are fighting for ours. Sometimes those benefits come together for all our benefit.
In Kuwait today, the sirens and distant thuds reminded of the physical and economic damage this war is doing to the Gulf. With constant attacks on oil and gas plants, politicians and the moneyed are now raising their own alarm. Qatar's foreign minister saying that a continuation of this war could bring down economies and send oil prices soaring. As such, there are frenzied efforts at global mediation. A loss of money, seemingly focusing minds. In a way, the loss of life does not. Emma Murphy, ITV News.
are being fired to intercept an Iranian ballistic missile, which is heading toward a US airbase in Qatar. They miss, so a third is launched, but it too fails to stop the Iranian missile hitting its target. The damage on the ground is only half the story. The combined cost of those 3 Patriots is $12 million, 6 times as much as the Iranian projectile. It's just one example of the enormous financial toll this war will take on the countries involved and the mismatched costs of attack versus defense.
Nobody knows what Donald Trump's victory conditions are. That means nobody knows when this war is going to end. And that means nobody knows what they've got time and money to expend before the shooting is done.
In this video, we're going to expose the hidden costs of the weapons calculations each key player in this war must make to outlast their enemies.
Controlling the skies, picking targets, death and destruction from the sky all day long.
So you can see, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons.
Here's what you need to know.
CRM is so slow. So slow. Thank goodness I'm using Monday CRM.
Greenest report's taking forever. What a nightmare.
You know that with Monday CRM, you can create a dashboard with real-time data, customize it, and make it real pretty in no time.
Wait, are you serious?
You can customize anything you want by yourself, not just dashboards. Change the labels, text, and colors, add any deal stage you want, create new automations to save time. Speed is the name of the game.
But moving to a new CRM will take forever.
Will it?
Did you just onboard me to Monday CRM with the snap of your fingers?
That's exactly what I did. Monday CRM, do it faster.
Let's start with the USA. Their military is ranked the most powerful and best funded in the world. They spend nearly $1 trillion a year on defense and have by far the largest supply of aircraft and more than 5,000 nuclear warheads. Since the start of what the US has dubbed Operation Epic Fury, their military tactics have largely been based around aerial attacks to take out not just Iran's leader, but their military capabilities. Striking missile silos, launch sites, warships, and the technology needed to track and control drone launches. Central to the US's strategy are their mobile floating battleships, focused around 2 aircraft carriers, USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford. Here, you can see a Tomahawk missile fired from one of the 11 destroyers defending those carriers. Able to fly under the radar, Tomahawks can strike targets 1,000 miles away. The US has fired at least 400 at a combined cost of $800 million. They also have the capability, for the first time, to launch Lucas kamikaze drones copied from Iran. Donald Trump certainly says they have the financial muscle to stay in the fight.
We will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay, whatever it takes.
But we've already seen the US losing military assets that cost tens of millions of dollars, including 3 F-15 jets down by friendly fire over Kuwait. So will they eventually start to feel the pinch?
I think we can think of those F-15s that were shot down. They're bought and paid for. That was not a money loss for the Americans. It was an absolute disaster for the F-15's reputation. But the US Department of Defense is not going to be hurting to buy a few more airplanes. The US Department of Defense is getting so much money, they have trouble spending it sometimes. So the United States is spending a lot of money on this war. They're spending a lot of money on missiles, on aircraft, and the United States government is borrowing a huge amount of money and they're going to be able to pay for it all.
Against American might, how does Iran stack up? In terms of budgets and aircraft, they are by far inferior. Their active military is about half the size in terms of people, but they have been preparing for this showdown for a long time. This footage, released from Tehran, shows huge stockpiles of attack drones and missiles hidden away in tunnels. And Iran has another advantage. It's often cheaper to counterattack than it is to defend, and that's exactly what they've done, hitting back at Israel, US bases, and its allies across the region. Their objective, it appears, is to expand the conflict, making the price of war too great to stomach. Let's focus in on one of their key weapons, Shahed drones, described as the AK-47 of the skies because they're cheap and only require low-tech components. Costing $35,000, Iran is thought to have produced tens of thousands before the war broke out. Up to 3.5 meters long, they're able to carry a 40-kilogram payload of explosives, 1,500 miles at 115 miles per hour. And as we've seen in Ukraine, they are very effective. In the first few days of this conflict, swarms of Shahed drones were launched at cities across the Gulf. That was Oman. This is Bahrain. But since those opening salvos, the US now says the rate of drone launches has dropped by 73%. Iran is also burning through an estimated stockpile of 2,500 missiles. So is there any way that Iran can outlast its powerful enemies?
The Iranians can fire loads of cheapy little drones and comparatively unsophisticated missiles at the Gulf monarchies, at Israel, at American, British, and French bases. They can unload the cheap stuff, and the Israelis, the Americans, the Gulf monarchies, and perhaps Britain and France need to spend big to defend themselves. The Iranian launchers are being pummeled. All of those launchers, the mobile launchers that drive around the roads of Iran, firing when possible, hiding when not, those launchers are vulnerable. The fuel trucks carrying liquid fuel are vulnerable. The Americans and the Israelis are attacking those launchers, those fuel trucks, those reloads as fast as they can. So the Iranians aren't depleting their stocks of 2,500 or so by launching them. The Iranians are firing as fast as they can before their stocks of missiles are destroyed.
Let's focus on one of those Gulf monarchies, the UAE. It's been one of the main targets of Iranian attacks. The tourist hotspot Dubai was forced to lock down with a luxury hotel on the city's famous palm among the sites targeted. The authorities want to shut the war down as fast as possible without sustaining too much damage to cities, infrastructure, or importantly, their reputation as a safe place to live and holiday. With that in mind, the most important weapons in their armory are interceptor missiles, which can stop Iranian aerial attacks. In just the first 4 days of the conflict, the UAE claims to have used interceptors to shoot down 755 of the 812 drones sent to attack them, an impressive intercept rate of 93%. But the interceptor missiles seen in action in this clip are estimated to cost between £1 million and 700. Put that in context, it may have been 33 times more expensive to defend the country than it was to attack it. The American Secretary of State recently admitted it is also much quicker to rebuild and restock attack drones and missiles than it is the defensive interceptors. So is the UAE able to sustain its current approach?
You have to think about defending a $1 billion town, $1 billion city against that cheap attack device. You can't think about the unit cost of your defensive systems. You spend what you need to spend. The United Arab Emirates don't really know what the American victory conditions are. Nobody knows what Donald Trump's victory conditions are. That means nobody knows what they've got time and money to expend before the shooting is done.
And what about Israel, America's main ally in this war? For such a small country, it punches well above its weight in military power. 90 nuclear warheads and some of the most advanced technology in the world. Their objective is to in the region militant groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Because they're more than 1,000 kilometers away from Iran, their focus is on long-range attack and, vitally, defense. Let's take a closer look at that. You might have heard of Iron Dome, a system which detects and tracks incoming rockets with radar, $50,000 per interception. The IDF says it destroys 90% of rockets targeted. Recent upgrades to Israel's defensive capabilities cost even more. Just last year, Arrow 3 was rolled out. It's hypersonics in space before they re-enter the atmosphere, but each one costs $3 million. During this conflict, a much cheaper alternative is being tested. What you're seeing here is a missile being destroyed by a laser. It's called high energy beam onto targets up to 10 kilometers away. There are concerns, though, that the laser doesn't work as well in bad weather. So, even with American backing, how long can they afford to keep things up?
They are saying they're confident. They're saying they've got all the missiles they need. They don't have enough. Amply provided with hardened shelters. During last year's war in June of 25. So if the Israelis have to start limiting their use of Arrow and THAAD missiles, and if they have to rely on the comparatively inexpensive, short-range Iron Dome and Iron Beam systems, it will be difficult, it will be costly in lives and in property. The Israelis can survive it.
So what about the UK? Defence spending cuts over recent decades have seen our military cut to 140,000, but Britain is still the 7th biggest spender in the world in nuclear power, and the Chancellor has committed to the biggest boost in spending since the Cold War. So far, during this conflict, Keir Starmer has limited UK involvement to defending its assets and allies. Slow mobilisation of its armed forces has drawn criticism from countries like Cyprus, the UAE and Bahrain. But the truth is the majority of the Navy's ships are not in a position to be dispatched. The one British vessel that is being sent is HMS Dragon. It's a Type 45 destroyer now being deployed to Cyprus to help protect Akrotiri RAF base. The 8,000-ton warship has a crew of 200. With a price tag of nearly £1 billion to develop and build, its specialist air defence systems will need to protect it as well as the base. Wildcat helicopters are also on their way, with a capacity to help shoot down drones. Plus, the Ministry of Defence has also said for the first time F-35 jets have shot down drones whilst in the air. Even with its limited involvement, the UK will need to carefully conserve its military resources.
The best thing that Britain and France and our other European allies can do is not write a blank check to the Americans, demonstrate to the Americans that they can't treat Europe as a bit of a doormat and then expect strategic assistance later on. The European countries have not been told by America why America's fighting, when it will have achieved its aims, or even really what its aims are. The best thing Europe can do is stand aside, defend our own assets, help our strategic partners survive, and see what happens at the end.
Like any conflict in the Middle East, how this one will end is extremely hard to predict. And all sides will need to consider what cost they're prepared to pay for victory. If you
Babylon, 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 Babylon. Down in the Babylon, we all got to be strong. Babylon, it's been a long time. Babylon, we have been bearing tribulation. Babylon, down in a Babylon, where there is pure frustration. Babylon, where there is pure pollution. Babylon, down in a Babylon, Babylon, down in a Babylon, Babylon, down in Africa, Africa, you must all be strong, Africa. It's been a long time, Africa. You have been bearing tribulation, Africa. Down in Africa, Africa. You must all unite, Africa. Down in Africa, Africa. Down in Africa, Babylon, 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 down in a Babylon, Babylon, we all got to be strong, Babylon, it's been a long time, Babylon, we have been bearing tribulation, Babylon, down in a Babylon, where there is pure pollution, Babylon, down in a Babylon, Babylon. Babylon, 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 Babylon. Down in a Babylon, Babylon. We all got to be strong.